Nevertheless, both recalls give more ammunition to China trade critics. At a recent Senate hearing, Republican Senator Sam Brownback said made in China should be considered a warning label.
That's
Melissa?
rough. All right, Hampton Pearson, thanks so much. Our insiders are following the big money at stake tonight. Bob Wittig has a firm concentrating on crisis communication, and CNBC contributor Peter Navarro is a business professor at the University of California, Irvine. Peter, what's your reaction to the way Mattel is apologizing? I mean, our kids are falling out of their Chinese cribs on the way to get to their lead-filled toys. It's unclear to me why they're apologizing.
This is a terrible mistake. It's a kowtow, the foreign devil, to the Chinese. The reality is the Chinese have been putting tremendous pressure on American corporations operating now in China. And basically the Chinese spin is it's not their fault. This makes products from China more dangerous, not safer, because it takes the heat off from China cleaning up its toxic act.
Bob, I don't get this. Is it a PR move?
I don't think so. I have to tell you, the one thing I am impressed by Eckert and by Mattel is the swiftness by which they've chosen to communicate. In this instance, I have to tell you, in reading the expertise of some American researchers, design flaws are a significant problem and recalls. And so if Mattel is telling us that, remember, they're doing a trifecta. They're talking to the Chinese while they're talking to our marketplace and they're talking to our households. So they're doing a tremendous balancing act, and right now they're trying to come clean about some source of this problem.
But Bob, lead paint isn't a design flaw.
No, I agree. So they took ownership of that issue with the Chinese, and I don't think the apology addressed the lead paint. It addressed that which they feel they are culpable for. So they distinguish between the two.
Melissa, from the get-go, Bob Eckert and Mattel have mishandled this crisis totally. Bob Eckert on TV, the only person I've seen more uncomfortable than Bob Eckert on TV was Nixon during the JFK-Nixon debates in 1960.
That's
he is
brutal.
Consistently bad. It is brutal, and if you watch him on television talking to the American public, you get no comfort from him. And this is just the latest episode in Mattel's mishandling of the crisis. They are going to be the poster child for how to mismanage a crisis in Harvard Business School's cases from here on in. But here's the issue, Melissa.
Okay.
The pressure that the Chinese are putting on companies like Mattel and in the food space on companies that are trying to export into China food, they're putting pressure on to get the Chinese to to get the Americans to back off here in Washington. But the problem with that is ultimately, if you take the pressure off the Chinese, if the Chinese don't acknowledge their culpability here, we are not going to have safer products in America. And this is not going to help the Christmas holiday.
Well, wait, Bob, let me ask you that question, though. I mean, what is it that they're trying to achieve by apologizing to China with China? I mean, are they trying to butter them up? What's going on?
You have to understand one thing in the Chinese way of doing business, and I think obviously Peter understands this too, that when you are wrong, you do so out loud. But at the same time, with the Olympics on the doorstep, and the private pressure that a lot of companies and our government are putting on them, I think they do get it. The issue that is arising here over and over again is a combination of issues. It is not just placing blame on one partner. Mattel is signaling properly, in my view, that it is also to blame for its failures in that partnership, and it is a two-way street. The good news for them is today even Oppenheimer signals a buy on it and says 2008 is going to be bright for Mattel.
Peter, last word to you.
The problem with that analysis, Bob, is that you haven't got any acknowledgement from the Chinese of their culpability. It's the great Stonewall of China. It's basically the Americans' fault. That's the spin they're putting on in the government press in China, and they're raising Chinese nationalism and anti-Americanism, and it's not their fault, when in fact they have a tremendous endemic systemic problem in China with product quality across the whole range of products.
But
Made
Peter,
in China is a warning label.
I know I said that was the last word, but didn't they execute who is the equivalent of the head of their FDA after all this, you know, with the pet food thing and that all started? It seemed like there's some kind of culpability there if they're executing someone.
Melissa, they do all sorts of these public displays. With the counterfeiting and piracy issue, they have these ritual kind of crackdowns. But bottom line is the system doesn't change. That's the problem.
Peter, one last thing. I have to say, those doors to China are not going to close.
All right, gentlemen, we've got to leave it there. Thanks to both of you for joining us tonight. We've been following it from the start. Iran's President